Thank you all for coming here this evening. I'd like to welcome you and call to order the January 12th, 2016 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Turn this off. Okay, we're on to citizens' comments on our agenda. And you may have noticed there is not a sign-up sheet this evening. I'm intending to just call on people from the audience. And if you're here to speak on any of the public hearings we have here this evening, in particular the school board construction bond, please hold those comments till we get to that public hearing. So at this time, I would look for anyone. Yes, sir, right here on the front row.
Here some pictures that take one, pass it down, and they are an aerial view of Port Orchard, and you can see that it's very beautiful from the air. But downtown Port Orchard is in need of help, and you are the council, you are the mayor. And I'm hopeful that you will see fit to, well, for one thing, I'd like to see the buildings between the bank and the library come down, and four lanes, the 2 lanes coming off in downtown Port Orchard. I'd like to see that. And if you have better ideas, I haven't, in the 10 years I've been around here, I have not seen very much pleasant or culturally useful growth in the area. One thing that I would like to specifically bring before you today is what is happening to the Dragonfly Theater. It's up for sale, and it has been a culturally important part of the people in South Kitsap, and I found out by getting a walkthrough with Griffin, the owner who was leaving, that the upstairs that used to be for dance classes and dance studio, educational teaching of various classes, has been empty for a long time. Bob Geiger owns that building. There are a number of people here from organizations that have been involved with the theater, and we're very concerned that it's going to be turned over to a chain or just closed. And I'd like to just bring that to you as a topic for a number of people, not just the council, not just the mayor, but people in the area that are willing to participate in seeing some positive growth in downtown Port Orchard and in Kitsap County. I'll use it my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir. If you could please state your name for the record.
My name is Charles Krugier. I'm founder and president of West Sound Landscape Supplies out in South Bethel and Highway 16. Congratulations to the new members and mayor. I want to just appeal to the council for those that may not be aware of the upcoming, the rescinding of the urban growth boundary out in our area for the city expansion. That was, I think, granted about 10 years ago. Those of us that have been there for quite a while have endeavored through the recession to make improvements, and we've been enjoying our zoning, and most of us have tried to contribute back to our community. It's disturbing to see what's been proposed by the county, and I want to go on record that we had an ad hoc meeting amongst us that were being affected or potentially affected, and not one of us received any notice or postcards or anything that this was going to be under review since last summer, and we just found out about it about a week ago. Seems something's not quite right with what's going on with this, and I consider the county, or excuse me, the city to have my trust more than what the county has displayed on Bethel Avenue so far. My compliments to the city for taking care of the Tremont interchange in Bethel. And we were promised some improvements 20 years ago on Bethel corridor. They haven't been done. Our town is suffering from image problems, as the previous speaker said. But I'm confident the city will take care of the Bethel corridor as far as safety goes. My concern is that's not far enough, and I would propose even that the city consider a newer gateway possibly to the city coming in Bethel like it used to be when I grew up here. When we came in from Gay Harbor, that was a state highway. Bethel Road was a state highway, and it was the only way into our county from Tacoma. And quite possibly, I would suggest and submit to you that that's a good way to take care of some of the traffic problems we're going to experience, and we are experiencing, coming off Highway 16. So to give up that corridor at this time, I believe would set us back a long way into what I think is good planning for the city, and we submit it to for your consideration for future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Anyone else wishing to speak before the council? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is John Allen. I live on Long Lake Road. Therefore, I have no representation among you and no official input to city business. I bring to you a subject near and dear to your heart, Mr. Mayor, the waterfront boardway, waterfront pedestrian walkway. I attempted to take my plea and my offer to the city's ADA coordinator. I could not find that person. And I looked for 2 weeks. What I'd like to address is accessibility, ADA being Americans with Disabilities Act. You're soon going to install Nike Goddess of Victory along the east, or at the east end of the existing pedestrian pathway. Let me give you a little background. In art school, courses on accessibility and ADA laws, both state and federal, are not included. In welding school, they're not included. And in almost all concrete placing apprenticeships, nobody is taught about accessibility. What I would like to encourage you to do, because all parties involved in your Nike Goddess of Victory haven't been trained, haven't been familiarized with accessibility. Accessibility, I mean primarily with people with disabilities. that responsibility because that sculpture has been donated to you. I encourage you to do it right the first time. If you want a hand, Mr. Anderson has my contact information. Thank you for letting me address you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments?
Brian Petro, 171 Shamrock, hometown instigator, conniver, and troublemaker. I'm here to thank you for being so strong in your personal abilities to run for office. I'm excited about the future of Port Orchard. I hope finally that this populist government runs on all 8 cylinders, and I see a team up there, and I hope that works out for everybody. But I urge you to fight for our urban growth boundary, which took forever to get in the first place, and be willing to take it to litigation if you have to. My second thing is I'm a South Kitsap graduate of 1977, and I went to a school with wonderful buildings and good people, but no money to keep them up. The buildings are very important, and I urge you to endorse and back the bond issue for a new high school, because it's the school system that makes this community unique. Last of all, you're going to hear about the Performing Arts Guild of South Kitsap, and I hope you support them. I spent 20 years of my life promoting theater in this community. We have so much talent, we need more stages to perform and create a tourist attraction with our performers. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Petro. Any other citizens' comments this evening? We have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. At this point, I will close citizen comments. So, at this point, I'm looking for an approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
I would like to add an item prior to the consent agenda, please. Approval of the council appointment of Scott Diener to fulfill vacated position number 3.
Okay. Is a motion, a second?
A second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Seeing none, that motion carries. So we have added an item ahead of the consent agenda for the appointment of Scott Diener. Any other?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second it.
A motion to approve the agenda as amended. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved as amended. At this point, I'm going to administer Mr. Diener's oath of office.
I think
We have to vote on
I
it
think
first,
we
Mr.
have
Mayor.
to
Hold on
discuss
first.
it and
I'm
vote.
sorry, I won't do that. Thank you for reining me in. So we are to the first order of business this evening, the appointment of Scott Diener to Port Orchard City Council, position number 3.
Do you have a staff report, Brandy?
Do you want to read her letter?
No. What I will just give the audience some background in that the council advertised for its vacancy position during the month of December. We received 6 applicants. We interviewed them last Thursday and deliberated Thursday and again Monday and came forward with a recommendation. At this point, we need to discuss the recommendation and vote on it.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, to get the item on the floor, I move that we appoint Mr. Scott Diener as the council member to fill the vacancy created by your election as mayor.
Your second.
I second it.
A motion and a second. Discussion.
Just as a discussion, as Beck mentioned, we had 6 members or 6 citizens who applied. The good news is that we had 6 very good candidates. The bad news is we had 6 very good candidates. It made the selection very, very difficult. And I think that was pretty evident by us not being able to reach a consensus the day of the interviews and resulting in yet another council meeting to try to come to an agreement on Scott. And Scott, you came to the top. So I just want to share with the community, one, my gratitude for those who applied, and secondly, we had some very, very good candidates. So.
Other comments?
I wanted to echo what Mr. Clausen said. He summarized it very well. It was very difficult to pick between people that were different, but some were just so well prepared and engaged the council. It was quite exciting to meet them all. Of course, it was a nightmare to try to figure out which was the one. And there may be some misconceptions. People first may think that we were voting people off the group. And it wasn't like that at all. It wasn't Miss America where you have your runners up. It was more like which is the top candidate that we felt would be the most well-rounded and would complement the council. And it was probably one of the toughest decisions we've had to make. But I want to thank everyone. And I think we all want you to still be active and look for other opportunities to serve the city.
Comments?
Yeah, I would echo that same thing. The last comment by Councilmember Chang is for the five that we had one spot. And please stay involved with our community. I mean, the leadership that each one of you brought to our table was impressive, and we can't lose that energy as we try to move things forward. So please stay active.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And we're prepared to take the votes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Now I will go.
Now you can administer the oath, Mr. Mayor.
Administer Scott's oath. You down here?
It should, hopefully, yeah, just very loud.
Scott, if you could, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, W. Scott Diener,
I, W. Scott Diener,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
and that I will support the Constitution and laws
that I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the state of
of
Washington,
the state of Washington,
and I will, to the best of my judgment,
and I will, to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability,
skills, and ability,
truly, faithfully,
truly, faithfully,
diligently, and impartially
diligently, and impartially
perform the duties
perform the duties
of the city of Port Orchard,
of the city of Port Orchard,
council position number 3,
council position number 3,
in and for Kitsap County, Washington,
in and for Kitsap County, Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by law.
and such duties are prescribed by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's got to make everything.
Thank you.
Brandy, it's diligently.
Thank you very much for this.
Ask Rob, I said it perfectly earlier.
Scott has asked me to allow him to say a couple of words if we could.
Thank you for the applause. That means a lot to me. It helps me understand and believe that we are entering a new chapter in Port Orchard history, and we all get to write that. I'll keep it short because I know we have a busy agenda tonight, but I'm very honored to be here. It means so much to me. I look forward to working with my peers, with the mayor, with the director, with city staff, and with members of the public. I have no preconceived notion about what is best for Port Orchard. I want to hear that from everybody else. And then we as a group will help write that new chapter for the city of Port Orchard. I look forward to working with you all, and thank you again.
Well said. So, moving on to our agenda, we're at the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We are on to presentations. We have the Good Neighbor Award. Ms. Lucarelli, are you the presenter?
I am. The Port Orchard City Council had been touring the city and awarded citizens, businesses, and neighborhood awards since 1995. The awards are presented at the January council meeting of each year. On December 16th of 2015, the majority of the council, myself included, toured the city to scout for the best residential home, business, and neighborhood representing the best holiday decorations. We have the winners, and we're very happy that most of you are here tonight. I want to start by saying that I chair the Festival of Chimes and Lights, and so many of our businesses and downtown participants, including the city, were so generous in putting out holiday displays. But one stands out, and it happened to be our presenting sponsor, Kitsap Bank. We would like to thank Kitsap Bank for all the years, the 17 years, that you have made such an effort to make the entrance to our city so spectacular. Truly, the light display, the holiday display that we have in this little town far exceeds many cities larger than ourselves, and we're very proud of it, and we are grateful to Kitsap Bank for how you have participated year after year and for your generous presenting sponsorship of our events. So would you please come forward to receive this award?
Take Jeff Graham, they're still sitting back there.
So I'd just like to thank the council and our new mayor for the recognition. Jerry Williams, our facilities director, and it's my pleasure really to work with Jerry, and it was all his doing, so we appreciate the recognition.
Does an outstanding job.
Beautiful, beautiful.
The next award that we have to give tonight is for the best window display. I know that most of you noticed how beautiful Bay Street looked this holiday season, that the merchants did such a wonderful job of decorating the windows to make everything look so festive. One stood out, and that was Wisteria Lane. And if you'd come forward, please, to accept your award. Your beautiful job. The next is a municipal award. This municipal award is going to the Port of Bremerton. Would you please come forward? Thank you so much for all the effort you did to make that whole waterfront look so beautiful. Is someone here tonight to accept the award? Well, we'll make sure that they get it. Thank you. On to the best neighborhood. Rutherford Circle in McCormick Woods stood out as being absolutely spectacular. There were several neighborhoods that were just wonderful, and we really enjoyed the tour. But Rutherford, is anyone here from that neighborhood to accept an award? Please come forward. Thank you very much. It was wonderful to see that.
We were provided some notes here that display looks like was made part by the Purdue family, Sally Mallory, David Fox, Joan Thomas, and Troy Snoke.
Oh, thank you for reading that. Thank you again. Next is the best home display. The best home display was 4462 Fantail Place. Are the homeowners here? Oh, please come forward.
And again, City, I believe this is the Lorton family.
The Lortons, I believe, actually won this award last year as well. If you've ever been there, their whole place is lit up. They've got a dancing Santa, the mailbox, everything is alive, and it is such a beautiful display. We thank you so much.
You enjoy doing it.
Thank you. We created this one because the second best home display was so lovely, and that was 1080 Tenby Court. Is anyone here tonight to receive that award? I believe that is the Ziegler household. Is that right? We'll make sure that they get this. And again, it was just such a beautiful display. We thank you all for your participation.
All right. Next presentation we have, she's returning the microphone. We're on to our next presentation, Performing Arts Guild of South Kitsap.
Good evening and welcome to the new council. My name is Dave Updegrove. I'm a longtime resident of South Kitsap and a longtime patron of the arts, in particular live theater. For 25 years, the Performing Arts Guild of South Kitsap, affectionately known as PAG, presented high-quality entertainment showcasing the outstanding talent west of Puget Sound. For most of that quarter of a century, we were on Bay Street, above what is now the Dragonfly Cinema. The live theater was probably the most diverse in the county. In addition to the standard fare, we produced plays not attempted elsewhere. At the end of 2005, circumstances forced us to relocate, and unable to find an appropriate venue, we reluctantly went on hiatus. This left a big hole in Port Orchard and South Kitsap that many have desired to refill since. This past fall, we held a PAG reunion celebration, and some of us began to talk about bringing PAG back from the ashes. Along the way, we encountered people who expanded our vision. We met filmmakers and authors who were also looking for an outlet in South Kitsap, and a new vision began to form. PAG, the Performing Arts Guild of South Kitsap, would become PAG, the nonprofit Peninsula Artists Group, supporting not only live theater, but independent film, literature, painting, music, and more. I'd like to introduce you to people whose hearts are in 3 of those media. Jerry Abbott, speaking for live theater. Iona Buick, speaking for independent filmmakers. And Mark Miller, speaking for the authors of South Kitsap. PAG is back, bigger and better than ever.
Hi, my name is Jerry Abbott, and as we first come together, I'm now the artistic director for PAG. I brought along this hat when I was trying to think of something to wear in the rain, and I remembered that 30 years ago when I was involved with PAG, this is a hat that I wore and bought on Bay Street for one of those shows. From there, I went on to start a theater in Iowa when I was out there. I started a theater in Bethel, Alaska when I was up there as a head of juvenile probation for Southwest Alaska. I had a theater and an art gallery in downtown Tacoma when I retired from Alaska. And I came back here 30 years later and ended up in Port Orchard once again. 30 years ago, I had a house for kids in recovery. I spent most of my life in the arts and working with kids, and found that the two together, that passion, creates a lot of healing. But theater creates more than anything else, community. Community for the artists involved, the technicians, everybody that comes together and produces a piece of art, and we produce it together. We want to do that again. We want to do it downtown. We would love to get that building that we don't know what's going to happen to. In fact, we've been trying to figure out a way to come together with the Dragonfly. But we're starting from scratch. All we have right now is passion and a lot of will, and a lot of people that want to come back out of the ashes and bring that back as individual artists, as a community of artists, and then for the people of South Kitsap. We're devoted to bringing back performing arts, but in that we want to bring back or give other artists, writers, playwrights, painters, sculptors, a place to show and do their work. And we want to bless that in South Kitsap here in Port Orchard. We would like to help make Port Orchard a bright beacon for that kind of creativity, because there is a lot of that here and it's not being seen. We have filmmakers working in Kitsap. We have writers that are writing in Kitsap. We have painters. We have actors and musicians and dancers. We want to bring that back, and we're asking, most of all, for your help in doing that. And lastly, one of the things that happened back 30 years ago when I was, and I think I worked in 6 or 7 shows, directing 3 or 4 of them 30 years ago. I involved at least a dozen kids in a couple of those shows, and these were kids that were desperately trying to remain sober after going through drug and alcohol treatment. The one thing about coming together to perform a show is that community, the love, and there to be applauding ourselves and to be applauded by others, and to recognize the hard work, the passion, the love, and the struggle that it takes to create something. We ask you to help us create once again, as like a phoenix out of the ashes, PAG is back. Thank you.
Is it on? Yeah, it's
Yep.
on. Hi, my name is Iona Buick. I'm actually at 730 Wall in Bremerton, not Port Orchard. And I'm here representing the local filmmakers in Kitsap County. I've worked on a couple of films based in LA and now in the Seattle area. Currently the production coordinator for one of our local authors who's making a TV series based on her novels, Cassandra's Castle. But I want Port Orchard to be aware of its huge potential for film right here in Kitsap County. I believe that if Port Orchard City Council supports the Performing Arts Guild of South Kitsap in their quest to find a space to rebuild their community of actors, this could have an impact on arts as a whole in the Kitsap Peninsula. We have resources that not many other places have, and I'm going to list them. First and foremost is location. I was lucky enough to help coordinate a film shoot this summer in the Seattle area, and our director chose a location that was smack dab between SeaTac and Boeing Field. And as you know, planes go overhead every 2 minutes, and filming outside scenes took like over 40 takes. Port Orchard is fortunate in that we are blessed with a quiet, lush green landscape, and as people have mentioned, we have a beautiful 1950s downtown area that is poised to be a background for films in that area, in that era. And I believe Port Orchard should boast these resources that no other place in Washington State has. The second resource that Port Orchard has that other places don't have is people. Olympic College, which is right next door to you, has a wonderful film program that puts out talented filmmakers every year. And yes, we could let them leave for LA or Vancouver to pursue their filmmaking dreams, or we could pursue a place to have them stay here to make independent film. Tacoma and Seattle are already growing meccas for independent filmmaking, and I think Port Orchard can become part of this exciting movement. Kitsap County is home to a lot of talent in terms of actors and film editors, a lot of whom are moving up here from LA, and these could become mentors for future independent filmmakers. We also have an unusually high percentage of popular writers compared to other communities, and the Peninsula Artists Group mission is to support new writers in this area as well, not only for novels but film. And lastly, the last resource, which is in progress, as you know, Senate Bill 6027 is currently making its way through legislature again. If it passes, it will support the motion picture industry coming from other areas to Washington State. And Port Orchard can be poised to help people if there are trained and ready crew and available studio space for independent filmmakers. I know that the Peninsula Artists Group plans to have studio space available for those that need it, and this can also bring needed revenue to Port Orchard as well as goodwill for filmmakers everywhere. So in conclusion, I hope the City Council will seriously consider supporting PAG, the Peninsula Artists Group, in any way that they can. I think that their reemergence in the Port Orchard area as an arts center can only benefit everyone in the area, no matter what arts they specialize in.
Good evening. My name is Mark Miller. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. After about 30 years, and about 3 years ago, decided I was going to start writing books. There was a comment made years ago, and I don't know by who, but it said that everybody has at least one good story in them. And since I've been here in Port Orchard, I run into an awful lot of people that are working to get that one good story out. I've gone ahead and already and contacted with your local Port Orchard Library and have arranged to have a local Port Orchard Authors Fair in April. Starting out small, probably about a dozen local authors. A lot of them, this may be the first chance to promote a book or whatever else they're writing. But it's a way to get everybody out there, and it's also a way to, like I said, everybody has that chance to try to get that one good story that they have bouncing around in their head all their life. If you look at kind of the history of humankind, we started, back in the old days of cave art and stuff, we were trying to write on the cave and paint on the cave as to exactly what was going on every day in our life at that time. What happened after that is somebody decided to try to maybe perform some of that around a campfire. Well, then what happened after that was we created the critic, where people started throwing stuff at the people they didn't like when they were performing around a campfire. And the actors blamed the writers, and the writers blamed the actors, and we have basically what we have today. But here today in Port Orchard has been so eloquently already spoken. I think you have a very vibrant community that could easily support a strong arts network. Authors, writers, actors, sculptors, painters, whatever you wanted. It's just a matter of getting us organized, asking for the community support from the City Council, possibly support with trying to help us find the necessary venues and locations that we could utilize to get everybody in Port Orchard involved in this. And if we want to take a page from a certain small town called Forks, Washington, that was kind of a very depressed little town until an author decided to write a bunch of books about some vampires who twinkled and shined in the sunlight. And because of that, now it is well known because of film. I don't see why that couldn't exactly happen here in Port Orchard also. Thank you very much.
In closing this presentation, I wanted to tell you why we asked for this time. Very simply, we're determined to bring PAG back to Port Orchard, and as the Peninsula Artists Group, we want to foster the image of Port Orchard as an arts-friendly, to contribute to its cultural richness and make Port Orchard a destination for artists around the West Sound and beyond. What we need from you is your support. Support is a general term, and it can be realized in a lot of different ways. And we're not asking for anything specifically. But it's a new year, there's a new City Council, and we'd like to partner with you to help create the vision for the arts in Port Orchard and South Kitsap. Elsewhere in the county, there's a lot of activity. Bainbridge Performing Arts is changing from an amateur theater to a more professional one. Seastock in Silverdale has just announced they're building a new $4.5 million facility. Bremerton Community Theater is undergoing a $325,000 renovation for their city-owned building. As PAG comes back to life, one of our first priorities once again will be finding an affordable facility to bring multi-dimensional arts center to Port Orchard. Any help in any form is greatly sought after. We're working on fundraisers, such as a GoFundMe site to launch on February 1st, and a dinner event in March or April featuring improv, short film, a nationally known stand-up comedian, and live music. We'd love to see each and every one of you there. So help us help turn the dreams of all kinds of artists in South Kitsap into reality. We'll be available for questions now or after the meeting anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. For the information you provided us tonight and your dedication to the arts and our community, and I hope we have the best success in this endeavor. So, on to our public hearings. We are to item 6A. Clerk Reinerson, do you have a staff report?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So at the December 22nd, 2015 City Council meeting, South Kitsap School District representatives informed the Council of a ballot measure that will go before the voters on February 9, 2016. They are asking the voters to approve a construction bond levy that will fund the construction of a second high school and provide funding for technology and safety upgrades at the existing South Kitsap High School. In addition, they asked the Council to support this bond. Staff was directed to notify the public, inviting them to voice their support or opposition of the bond. Staff sent press release on December 23, 2015 to local media, and on January 28, 2016, a notice was published in the Port Orchard Independent. A draft resolution is included for Council's consideration tonight after the public forum discussion. Staff recommends the Mayor open the public hearing, or open the floor for public comments.
I believe it is public hearing, isn't it? So at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing and take testimony on the support or not. So if I'm take testimony on the South Kitsap School District construction bond, please raise your hand to be recognized. Mr. Garten, front row here.
Good evening, and thank you for considering the resolution. I'm Greg Wall. I'm the president of the South Kitsap School Board. I have with me Dr. Michelle Reed, our superintendent. We'll probably do a joint testimony if that's okay, and maybe speed things up. You heard what we're asking for in our bond. It's $126,992,000 and so many, how many cents? I don't know. But, and we are getting $6 million from the state to help us also put this up together. The election is February 9th. South Kitsap schools have needed a new high school for many years, a second high school. All my kids went to the South Kitsap High School, which is still a great high school, but we're seeking to build a STEM-oriented, which is science, technology, engineering, and math high school. And we've formed a partnership with Olympic College and with the Kitsap Regional Library to make the building much more efficient and be able to use it more than 7 or 8 hours a day by having Olympic College classes in the evening and library staffed in the evening also. Our schools are growing. Our population has been increasing our enrollments increased the last 2 years and is continuing to grow. We have a very active supporters group who some elves, I guess, left some T-shirts and wristbands on there for if anybody's interested. In general, we feel that this is the best possible thing that could happen to the city of Port Orchard, and so we're asking your support, and I'll let Dr. Reed talk for a minute.
I just want to say thank you for giving us the time and attention to this really, I think, important community topic. I want to assure you that our board and our cabinet has gone to great lengths to do our due diligence to bring a bond before the voters that's financially responsible and responsive to our growth and enrollment patterns. We're excited about the future of this community and know that healthy schools are the center of that. So I just want to thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wish to be recognized in the green shirt here?
My name is Adam Smith, and I am a volunteer of the South Kitsap School Supporters. I am the campaign coordinator of our social media effort, and in the past 4 weeks, I've come across two main concerns related to this bond for a second high school. Number one, some citizens are concerned with the cost of increased taxes, and number two, others are not sure how it benefits them if they do not have kids that use our schools. If we come together as a community and decide to pass this bond, as a property owner, my portion is roughly $20 per month. When I read the concerns of Facebook voiced by my fellow citizens, I would argue that their concern is not about spending $20. I just spent $20 on Powerball this week and I didn't win. I didn't get anything, and it didn't stop me from spending $20. The problem is perceived value. It's about what's in it for me. Why should I invest? What do I get in return for my $20? There are many reasons our team has discussed online for why our community should vote yes for this bond. But with my time, I will discuss the one benefit we all benefit from: community. One definition of community is a natural group as of kinds of plants and animals living together, depending on one another for various necessities of life, as food or shelter. I've learned that in life, one thing that is constant is change. People either invest in things or they don't. Things either improve or they decline. The area of South Kitsap has grown and improved as our citizens have invested money, work, and time. We're growing now, and we will continue to grow. Our city must grow with it. No one wants to pay taxes, but we know that before a farmer can harvest a crop, he first must plant a seed. When a house in our community is on fire, we are happy to have firefighters. When a pothole emerges, we are happy to have workers to repair it. When we have a dream of who we want to be when we grow up, we are happy to have teachers who believe in us and encourage us. There are some of us in this room who grew up in our schools, and as an adult decided to make Port Orchard their home. I am the third generation of my family to graduate from South Kitsap, and my kids will be the fourth. I met my wife there, and today she is a veterinarian who will be working at Cedar Creek Veterinary Hospital starting in February. I may not know exactly where every one of my tax dollars go, but I know where this $20 bill will go. I'm happy to invest in a community that has invested in me and my family. I don't see this as just a tax. I see it as a seed that I'm planting. It will attract more residents. Some of those residents will start new businesses that provide new products and services and create jobs. Some of those residents will be customers of our current businesses. Some will volunteer in our community. Some will help shape events and traditions here. So my fellow taxpayers, I need you all to realize that your investment in our schools is really an investment in our community. You don't have to have students in your home to benefit from this. Our city needs hope. That's what the slogan means. We believe a new school will help give South Kitsap a new future, a much brighter future for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Yes, sir.
I'm Ryan Hayter. I have a second grader at Sunny Slope and live in McCormick Woods. I've lived in Port Orchard for 15 years, and I've heard talk about the potential of this town for 15 years. It's to the point where I almost roll my eyes. There's always hope here, but it's been pretty stagnant. And I think the pillars of strong community are a progressive government, a healthy business community, which I know this new council is really focused on, and also schools. So I had a conversation with Doug Miller yesterday, sitting behind me, about what questions does he get asked with his potential real estate clients. And he said the number one question by far is, how are your schools? Up to 80%. And it turns out that's a deterrent, where if they're looking at Silverdale, if they're looking at Gig Harbor, we may lose them when it comes to school. And I may need Dr. Reed to back me up on some of these statistics, but only 46% of our student population or graduates go on to pursue a 2-degree or 4-year college degree when we are compared to surrounding districts that gets around 70%, and I think the region is around 60%. Is that, yeah. So a lot of numbers there. And I'm thinking, why is that? Do we have a bunch of dumb, unmotivated kids here? No, not the case at all. We're not giving them what we need with the current system. The structure is antiquated, it's crowded, so the curriculum that's available is not available to everybody. And with a new high school, these students, by having 2 high schools, it's really going to affect every single student within South Kitsap. It's not just going to benefit people on the west side of town, because the curriculum is going to be more open to more people, more extracurricular activities are going to be available, and it's going to really benefit everybody. And just in closing, I was at the Tea Room, is it, in town here. Whenever my mom visits from Kansas, she loves to go there. A little feminine for me, but the food's good. But I walked in and there's a T-shirt right when you walk in that says, "Pretend you're in Cedar Cove." And I'm tired of pretending. I want to not pretend I'm in Port Orchard. I want to live here, and I want this town to be proud of it, and want you to back this bond. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Robert McGee. I wrote things down because I'll forget them. We're at a crossroads. Big decisions that impact the future of Port Orchard and South Kitsap are knocking on our door, and we as a community can either close that door and remain where we are, or we can open the door to a bright new future. As a local business owner here in Port Orchard and South Kitsap, as a property owner here in Port Orchard and South Kitsap, as a father, a resident, I have a vested interest in the success of our town. I've lived here for 35 years, and it's my expectation that my elected officials will support, promote, and endorse initiatives that are good for the health of our kids, our families, our businesses, and our community. So why should the City of Port Orchard support the bond? Why should you get behind it? The South Kitsap School District has presented an intelligible, detailed, and financially responsible bond that, when implemented, will grow the learning opportunities for our students and will continue progressing the whole of South Kitsap towards a prosperous future. This measure has the foresight of borrowing money when it's never been cheaper to lessen the burden on our taxpayers, the sense to build before state-mandated code requirements could change and negate some of the usefulness of the property for the new school, and have had the foresight to get ahead of some of the growth issues that are not coming our way. They're here. We are growing, and we can't stop it. So we can get the cart in front of the horse instead of behind it. A quality school system will build a stronger, better educated workforce in South Kitsap to compete in a challenging global economy where now more than ever education is a key to opportunity and success. A quality school system attracts talented, able people we need to run our businesses, our educational and cultural institutions, as well as our many nonprofits. Quality schools attract and retain high-quality employers offering good, well-paying jobs to our local workforce. Quality schools reduce school dropouts, delinquency, crime, incarcerations, and welfare costs, which reduce the overall burden on our taxpayers. Regions with quality schools have increases in property values. A healthy, growing school system will support the local economy by hiring its workforce locally, utilize service businesses, contractors, and vendors supplying its day-to-day needs. It will attract quality families to the area who add to the local workforce and business community, as well as increase the tax base to continue community improvements and spend dollars in our local businesses. It will attract quality teachers who want and deserve to work in quality school systems that invest in their infrastructure and provide quality tools for them to successfully teach our scholars. Quality, vibrant schools support and utilize local businesses, keeping dollars in the local economy and boosting the tax base. Quality schools attract new businesses who are seeking out locations with quality school systems as a place to live and work. Quality school system will keep our students here in SK instead of choosing other districts, which loses money for our school district when they go away from us. A quality school system will overall enhance the quality of life for our entire community. There are countless more positive impacts that a quality school system brings to local communities. As a local business person and owner of multiple properties, I in particular will see a pretty major financial impact. However, I see the forest through the trees and understand this investment in my community is sound, and a return on my investment is just more than financial. The cliche definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's time to do something different, and realize that investing in our school system is a foundational building block to a bright and prosperous future to our community. It's time. Vote yes for our kids. Vote yes for our community. Vote yes for our future. I implore you as my elected city council to support and endorse the SK bond and the future of our city in South Kitsap.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Appreciate you having this available to all of us here tonight, whether you're here supporting the bond or not. It's an important topic to have here. I'm here tonight, believe it or not, obviously with my girls up here. I'm here as a parent, but I'm also here as a business owner. And I wanted to talk about both. But before I talk about that, Jay Rosapepe could not be here tonight. He actually was involved in just making sure that students and staff were okay on a bus accident that happened earlier this evening. So he asked me to bring up two quick topics, and then I'll move on to what I was going to talk about as well. But the school district, when you look at the school district's partnership with the city, has been down to a couple of things. The school district supported the annexation when it came down to McCormick Woods, as well as the 57 acres where the high school is, prospectively going to be built. The school district also partnered with the city on the sewer lift on Pottery. There's been a history of partnership with not only the school district and the city, but obviously a rapport there that we would ask that you continue moving forward by endorsing this bond. I would ask that the City Council endorse the bond for a few reasons, and I wanted to talk first about business impact. As most of you know, I'm a realtor here in Port Orchard and in the South Kitsap area, and when I look at things, as Ryan had mentioned earlier, it comes down to the number one question that I get asked by prospective homebuyers, with families especially, is how are the schools? And I find that the answer that I give isn't the best answer. And what my answer is, well, our schools are really improving. And by saying our schools are really improving and talking about progress and talking about potential for the future, is also acknowledging that right now they're not where they need to be. And this school bond is the first step in getting us to where we ultimately need to be. When you look at real estate sales in South Kitsap specifically, we are going on 4 consecutive years of growth. We had more units sold in South Kitsap in 2015 than any single year in over 10 years, and that includes at the peak of the market in 2005, 2006. We had a 30% increase in units sold in South Kitsap this last year. So there are a number of citizens that have said, well, they want the city to stay the way it is, or they want to embrace Port Orchard as having a charm because they don't want it to be Seattle. They don't want it to be these more building and growing areas. And I get that. There's a reason we moved to Port Orchard, and that was because of the feel we had here in community. But the fact of the matter is, those people are already coming, and they're continuing to come. We have outpaced Kitsap County as a whole, both in unit increases as well as sales percent over last year for dollars. So not only are we appreciating fast for units, but we're appreciating for sales prices ahead of Kitsap County as well. So clearly we have this growth that's coming in right now. The other thing that I would obviously urge you, as a parent, schools are extremely important to me. Maddie, my youngest here, is in 4th grade right now. 5 years from now is when this high school is targeted to open. My oldest, Megan, will already be in South Kitsap High School. She'll be halfway through and freaky enough on her way to hopefully to college or whatever she wants to do. But my youngest, Maddie, has the opportunity to be the first child in that class of that new high school. And what I would ask is that you take a look at Maddie and you look at her and go, geez, that's, 5 years, that's a long time from now. And it is. So we're building for a high school that is going to be here 5 years from now. So when you look at the consistent growth in Port Orchard, the consistent growth in South Kitsap, and think of her when she's here and now she's going to be here, what is Port Orchard going to look like? Well, my hope and my expectation when I voted was that Port Orchard is going to continue to be better and be what it should be. And if it's going to continue to improve, if it's going to be better, if it's going to be what it should be, then we're going to attract more people. We're going to attract more jobs. We're going to attract more businesses, and it's a positive situation for Port Orchard. So what I would ask from you tonight is to endorse this bond. I would ask you to endorse this bond for obviously families and my children. I would ask you to endorse this bond as a business owner. And I would ask you to endorse this bond as someone that lives in Port Orchard. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Lynn Wall, and I'm here tonight to speak to you as a parent, a resident of this community, and a U.S. citizen. There are many things to love about Port Orchard, but perhaps one of the biggest concerns to me and parents I know is the quality of education and opportunity in South Kitsap schools. While the schools have much to offer, the district is currently experiencing overcrowding, and that can only be expected to increase unless we as a community take action. My day job offers me firsthand experience and knowledge in the growth that Port Orchard and the South Kitsap area is experiencing and will continue to experience. Likewise, you as the elected officials for Port Orchard are probably very familiar with the urban growth areas approved in your current comprehensive plan and the projected growth and housing targets for your upcoming plan. Bottom line, growth is coming. It has already been approved, and now the only question is, will we be ready? That growth can be very good and positive for Port Orchard, for businesses, jobs, and this community. However, we must plan for that growth and ensure that we have facilities to meet the basic needs of that population. Chief among those needs is education. South Kitsap School District has put together a responsible and comprehensive bond plan to address the current and future educational needs for your constituents and all of the South Kitsap residents, to ensure that our youth are productive members of this community. Education is the key to unlocking the potential for each young Port Orchard resident. Think for a moment about any technology advancement that you use on a regular basis, whether it be a GPS, your smartphone, or gene therapy for cancer treatment. Each of those advancements came because a community and residents just like us somewhere chose to fund public education that became the foundation for those great minds. This is our time to contribute. Please choose to make Port Orchard great and to ensure the future of each member of our society, including our young and all of the residents who will benefit from this important bond advancement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, you wish to speak?
So we tried to orchestrate it so that I would be towards the end. But I didn't prepare anything to say. I would like to take an opportunity, for those of you who don't know, I am the Executive Director for the Port Orchard Chamber of Commerce, and it's not very often that the Chamber of Commerce tries to take stands on political issues. Two things we've decided to do is support this bond and support or should I say not support any changes in the UGA. That is something that, and that's for a different subject and that's for a different day. But those are two issues that we feel strongly about. I'd like to introduce, I have a number of different board members here today. So if you're a board, raise your hand from the board. Christine Cowan's the president. They have Sheila Klein, Robert McGee, Kathleen Wilson, Gary Anderson, Bobby Stewart way back there in the back, Dr. Michelle Reed. We are here as a group to support and to urge you to support the upcoming bond. And like the real estate world, I get lots of phone calls, people wanting to move to the area, and that's one of the number one questions. And what about the schools? And I say, I could be a politician because I can spin it. I can say, South Kitsap has the largest school in the state. And I say that with a smile. Okay, and I say that with a big grin and I spin it. I don't tell them that South Kitsap has 85 portables on their campuses across the district, that they're only one of 2 school districts in the state that don't have their 9th graders at the high school. I don't tell them that 7 of our 11 elementary schools are bursting at the seams. I don't tell them those things. Those are some of the facts. So I would like right now to introduce Kathleen Wilson. She's got a formal declaration of support. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. My name is Kathleen Wilson. I'm the manager at the Port Orchard Library and the mother of 2 sons in the South Kitsap School District. But I'm speaking to you tonight as a member of the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce and the chair of the Education Committee. The Board of Directors of the Port Orchard Chamber of Commerce wishes to express their full and unanimous endorsement of the upcoming South Kitsap School District bond to build a second high school and make improvements to the current South Kitsap High School. It is the belief of this board that a second high school will not only greatly benefit the students of South Kitsap School District, but also the numerous local businesses that employ our graduates, and that the addition of a STEM-focused high school will enhance the quality of life of all South Kitsap residents. The board takes the Chamber's mission statement, promoting business and encouraging community in South Kitsap, seriously, and believes this bond fulfills both of those guiding principles. At this time, a comprehensive secondary education that incorporates freshmen into the full high school curriculum is not a luxury, but a necessity in order to give our South Kitsap students the same opportunities students in every other district in the state are receiving. The board is aware of business and training opportunities that are currently unavailable to our students due to the space limitations of our current high school. The leadership of the South Kitsap School District has presented a clear, specific, and fiscally responsible bond that, when fully realized, will enhance not only the learning opportunities for our students, but the morale and reputation of our entire South Kitsap area. So I implore you to join the Chamber Board of Directors and support this bond.
Thank you. To speak on this matter.
I would just say,
Please step to the microphone, sir.
after coming back here after 30 years, my kids don't need a new high school. So why should I vote to spend some more money on that? Because when my kids did go to school, somebody my age that didn't have kids in school helped pay for that school. Each generation, no matter how old we are, has responsibility for the next. I know it's a cliche, but it takes a village to raise a child. And all of the generations that we have a responsibility to do that. I have a responsibility, even if I don't have kids in school, to see that the next generation of kids have what my kids had when they went to school. So I urge you to vote for it, if for no other reason, then damn it, it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Yes, sir.
Mayor and city councilmen and councilwomen, I've lost my notes. Hang on just a second. Modern technology is hard for some of us. I've been in the Port Orchard area since 1977, and my son matriculated through the high school, so I'm like the previous gentleman. I'm a member of the community that really doesn't have kids who'll be in the school, so what's the reason behind this? And it's been well stated, but I'd like to just kind of give a little different perspective on where we are, because this bond represents a very rigorous and organized process to get to the bond. Several committees were formed. One committee evaluated the school boundaries. One committee evaluated the facilities of the South Kitsap School District, and I was a member of that committee. That committee was well, it was a diverse committee. I was a community member, so but it was also had members of the school system. It also had one or more members that are professionals in school facilities. So all the school facilities were examined, evaluated for their condition, and the recommendations that were made, most of the recommendations that were made by this committee to the school board were accepted. And this committee and the other committee worked for a long time. This process occurred well more than a year to really develop the recommendation. So the recommendations were, the key elements of the recommendations were as stated is the realignment of the existing high school to a 9 through 12, which is a much better educational model. As a matter of fact, I think there are only a few holdouts that don't have that. It aligned to, or recommended building a new high school where the growth is, and that'd be in the west side of the community, and it would also make improvements to the existing high school. So kind of in my summary, I'd really ask you to endorse this. I'd ask you to consider that a healthy committee is really founded on healthy schools or good schools, and I think this is a fairly meager investment to gain a much needed improvement in our school systems. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, what's your pleasure in this matter?
Well, I tell you, I just appreciate the turnout from our community tonight on this public hearing. I know I've had many others contact me that might not have been able to be a part of this tonight, but that certainly are supportive of the bond. And it's pretty easy for me to move to adopt a resolution supporting the South Kitsap School District construction bond scheduled for voter action on February 9th, 2016.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Clausen.
Yeah, actually, I've been making myself some notes on this thing, and just so that the community understands, as a political body, before we can take a position on this type of issue, we have to give the community an opportunity to voice their interest either for or against an issue, and that's what here took place tonight. It was quite impressive to see the community come out with all in favor of and not one speaking against the issue, although I'm sure there are some out there. I think the comments that were made here tonight were very well said. I think they touched on a lot of very important issues for the community. A couple of them that I made notes on was beyond the right thing to do, the issue of why should we support something. My kids have graduated, but I have 3 grandchildren that live in this community, and they will benefit from this improvement. So I certainly think it's a wise investment. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to listen to the State of the Union speech tonight before the council meeting. I was able to catch a bit of it before coming down to City Hall, and it was quite interesting that our president spoke quite a bit about the importance of education, not only for our local community, but for our nation as a whole. And in fact, one of the comments that he made was that in his last year in office, one of the things that he's going to work towards is that as a nation, we provide 2 years of community college at no cost to our youth as they come forward. And this kind of a bond issue, I think, sets the stage for preparing kids to move into that next level, which is community college. Growth, people mention the growth. In my daytime job, I have an opportunity to not only see what goes on in the rest of the county, but to work with the folks, as I refer to it, on the other side of the pond, and to listen to what the Seattle-King County community is experiencing right now, where they've had I think it's in the last 2 or 3 years, they've had something like 62,000 new jobs created in the Seattle area. and 70-some thousand people moving into the community to obviously look for those jobs. I had somebody tell me, I don't know if this is correct, but it certainly stuck with me, that they've only seen that kind of growth. That's only second to the gold rush. Now that's over there. Well, that over there has spilled as far south and as far north and as far east as they can, to where now the commute to get into those areas is unacceptable. They're coming this way, folks. Doug, your comment about the growth in sales, I understand and certainly see it. So I think it's important for us in our future. I think it's important for us as a community to be able to brag about our schools. And I certainly think it's something that we need to support wholeheartedly. So, thank you.
Other comments?
I made
Ms. Lucarelli.
I have personally supported the bond all along, and I've heard many of you speak before, but I was a little reluctant to represent the community in supporting the bond because of how seriously I take this position, because I don't know all people's circumstances, and this is quite a lot to ask of a household in addition to all the increases we're asking. However, what we did ask tonight is for people to come forward to express their concerns publicly, and you have done such an amazing job of representing this issue, and I am sold. I am sold. You came out and you organized in such a beautiful way, and everything that you said was so valid. And again, personally, I have always supported this, and now I am led to say that I will throw my hat in as far as endorsing as part of the council. It is a wonderful thing that you give the citizens the opportunity to vote for or against it, but I really do think that this second high school and these improvements will benefit Port Orchard. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Diener?
Thank you. We have heard such strong and compelling testimony tonight that we really, it's a moral obligation, I think, that we have. And I know that's pretty strong, but I intend on supporting the bond and endorsing that with my vote. And I also would ask that those who are supporting the bond consider approaching the county for similar support, because that school will be attended by not just city of residents. So please consider that as well. And I look forward to seeing a new school that my family will be using as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Chang.
Or Clancy, did you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. You look eager. Oh. I did want to acknowledge that the cost, I love the $20 analogy that Adam gave of lotto tickets. For some people may be considerable. So it is a sacrifice that I believe they will have to weigh on their own conscience. But I think what really struck me is when one of the applicants for council last week was talking about how a better school system is an amenity, not just for the current population, because it's not only your kids and your grandkids, but it improves the population as a whole. But it does make the area more attractive, and we want that. We want more people to come in, more businesses to come in. And so I will also be supporting this measure. And the only challenge that I'd actually like to throw out to the district is if there's any way that you could perhaps include extension courses for other segments of your population, maybe a junior college, so older people might be able to learn things like some of the technology that they are not quite so comfortable with. But once again, thank you all for coming.
It's been stated pretty eloquently by the volunteers that are supporting this bond, and I'm very impressed. I'm a relatively new resident here, just 3+ years. And when we moved here, we live very close to South Kitsap High. I learned the population of that high school exceeded the population of half the towns in the state. I was amazed. And the people that spoke about those that are looking to relocate into our community, one of the first questions they do ask is, how are the schools? And if I have anything to say about it with my support, they're going to be impressed because we're going to have a new high school. I fully support it. I'm proud of you people who have come out and put so much time and effort into something like this that there's no way I couldn't support it. And I hope you are as enthusiastic about the next big issue that comes up into this area. I will be supporting this.
I guess I'm the only one who hasn't spoke, and I may be the only one in the room who remembers or that talks about the current high school as the new school, because it didn't look like that when I graduated from it. I also wanted to express my compliments to, I believe it's Megan and Maddie Miller, to so graciously stand up there and be the face of the bond issue. I see your faces on social media, and you presented again this evening. And so my compliments to you two beautiful young women.
We're more about making that motion to get things moving forward, but just one thing for anyone out there that might be seeking more information about this bond. I've had the opportunity to meet directly with Dr. Reed and many other people, and this is so much more than just building a building. If you understand what this leadership is trying to accomplish, it's impressive, and the transparency of which they've gone about this process. Please reach out if you have any questions and educate yourselves on how this transforms our local education system. It really, truly does touch every single child in our community, not just those that might be going to high school in 5 years. And I think there's some importance to that. So please educate yourselves and understand kind of the entire vision behind what they're accomplishing at our school district. And I thank you all.
You have to indulge me here on this one tonight. I'm going to try not to interject myself as a policymaker. I know I have a new role here, but Mr. Murphy and I actually were the first class in that new high school. The new high school. What I witnessed here this evening and the enthusiasm, this crowd here tonight, makes me proud to be the mayor of this community. And more importantly, I'm extremely proud to be a citizen of this community. So I really appreciate you all coming out. When I drove up tonight, I thought, wow, everybody's here for my first meeting. but thank you. So, with that said, we have a motion and a second on the floor. And all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Would you all indulge me as a council for a photograph with this wonderful crowd we're here tonight? And if you wouldn't mind, bring your T-shirt.
I noticed that Mr. Dieter's missing one, so you can.
Fair enough.
What, do you want us to put our T-shirts on?
Yours.
Good for you. Oh, maybe we don't have to wear them. We just get to hold them.
That's when you said that, I thought, oh, you're the first one.
No. It was the new school.
You got the right size.
Hey, Joshua, take your coat off, buddy.
We ready? All right. 1, 2, 3, new school. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Thank you.
betcha, Robert.
Yep, thank you.
Give them permission to leave.
Yeah.
And I think they are for the most part.
Yeah.
We'll give a moment to things settle down. I just go well worth it. All right, let's bring our bring our meeting back to order. We are on to our next public hearing, item number 6B, a public hearing, an adoption of an ordinance amending the zoning code, table 16.30.70. Mr. Bond isn't here this evening, and Mr. Dorsey, I believe you're covering for him.
Yes, Mr. Bond took ill today, and so I will read the agenda bills into the record. I will try to answer the best I can any questions, but we'll just see how it goes. So the City of Port Orchard Public Works Department has received grant funding to upgrade the existing decant facility at 1272 Lloyd Parkway. The existing decant facility straddles two parcels in two zoning districts, the employment industrial and the office and community facilities zoning. So the wastewater treatment facility is an outright permitted use only in the community facility zoning district. The proposed zoning code amendment would permit the wastewater treatment facilities to be within the industrial zoning district. And so the Public Property Committee asked the Planning Commission to consider a minor change to the zoning table and make a recommendation. On December 14, 2015, the Planning Commission made a motion recommending that the City Council permanently adopt the proposed amendment, which would make wastewater treatment facilities a permitted use within the industrial zone. And I'd like to maybe enhance on the term wastewater facility. A decant facility falls under the category of a wastewater facility, but it's not like we're permitting a sewage treatment plant up in the area. For those that don't know, a decant facility is basically where you take, for the most part, soils that have been removed from roadside ditches or sediment that's been trapped in catch basins. Or if we have a sewer main break, we would use our Vactor machine to use that to excavate a small area to make the repair. That saturated soil gets dumped onto a pad, and so that liquid decants out of the soil, so that the soil's dry enough to then be sent to a hazardous waste material site, and then the liquid or the liquor then goes actually to the treatment plant. So it's just a decant facility and then the actual treatment. So I don't want people to get spun up about the term wastewater. I could just see the people say, hey, I don't want a wastewater treatment facility back there. So recommendation is that staff recommends that the City Council adopt the proposed ordinance amending the zoning code table 16.30.070. And we're looking at, this is a public hearing.
So at this time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to testify on this matter? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And Ms. Lucarelli.
I move to approve the proposed amendment to POMC Table 16.30.070.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. You did an exceptional job, Mr. Dorsey, of explaining this because there were no questions. So, seeing no questions, all those in favor of, where are we here? Of item 6B, the amending the zoning code, table 16.30-70. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We are on to our next public hearing. Item number 6C, a public hearing and adoption of an ordinance to amend zoning table, code table 16.40.25. Mr. Dorsey, I think you're up again.
Yes, so I know less about this subject, but I do know some about this subject. So I can answer some questions. The Department of Community Development has found that the current limits on residential density in mixed-use zones may be lower than the densities necessary to encourage economically viable mixed retail and residential projects. At present, the Municipal Code 1640-025 allows a maximum density of 12 dwelling units per acre in the mixed-use zones. The Department of Community Development has prepared draft amendments to the Municipal Code 16.40.025 attached as Exhibit A, which increase the maximum number of residential units allowed per acre to 30 dwelling units in mixed-use zones and to 48 units per acre in the mixed-use zone within the central downtown overlay district. The proposed amendments, leaving the existing bulk regulations unchanged, new development still have to meet all existing setback, lot coverage, height standards of the zoning district. At the work study session on November 18th, 2014, the City Council recommended that the Planning Commission review potential changes to the residential density allowed in the city's mixed-use zoning district. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposed amendment on December 15th, 2014, and then continued the public hearing to February 23, 2015. The Planning Commission issued a recommendation to adopt the proposed amendment on February 23, 2015. So staff recommends that the City Council adopt the proposed ordinance amending zoning code table 16.40.025.
Okay, I'm going to open a public hearing for ordinance to amend zoning code table 16.40.25. Anyone wishing to testify on this matter? Mr. Waters.
Pat Waters, and I've been a developer in the city and county. I'm retired from that now, but I know that this mixed-use zoning code has limited a lot of building because of the cost of attempting to put a project together. It's hard to get to pencil it with a limited amount of 12 units per acre, and increasing that should help a lot of projects be able to be built. That's what I know about it, and I think the mixed-use zoning is something that really came in with the last UGA and hasn't been well received. It's been problematic and has stymied growth not only in the city but in the county, so this is a good step in the right direction. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wish to testify on this matter? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Chang.
I'm just making you do this.
Oh, okay. All right. I move to approve the proposed amendment to Port Orchard Municipal Code Table 16.40.025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on this matter. Mr. Diener.
I can relate that the experience that currently exists with mixed-use density is difficult at the current rate. That has been experienced in other communities in our areas where we've had to consider higher densities in the mixed-use zone. Kingston, for example, has a mixed-use density. I think that's at 18. And that, even at that range, that's difficult to pencil out. So these changes appear, in my opinion, to be very reasonable and the right thing to do.
Okay.
Ms.
Ashby.
Yes, I would say that it seems for the downtown overlay district, the 48 units per acre seems large. However, there are other regulations within the DOD that need to be complied with. And so I'm not sure that they could actually develop at 48 with the other criteria that needs to be met. However, I do believe that that is a reasonable number for the downtown overlay district. And I also believe that as we work through our centers, our centers format with the town and doing sub-area plans, that we will find the need to have the increased density for mixed use.
Other comments? Mr.
Well,
Chang.
echoing what Councilwoman Ashby has mentioned, we did speak about this briefly at yesterday's public property meeting, and the number sounds like we would be having micro units, which is not the case. We found out that with these numbers, with, for example, a parcel that we have on Bay Street, currently it could only zone at 2,000 square feet per unit, something which we thought was excessively large for that area. And this would make a lot more reasonable units available. And so I would support this.
Other comment? Seeing none, we'll be voting on adoption of an ordinance to amend zoning code table 16.40.25. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We are on to our business items. We are to 7A, appointment of a mayor pro tem for 2016. Does anyone have a motion for me? Do we want to have a discussion ahead of a motion?
Almost need one.
Okay.
Discussion ahead of a motion.
It's not the norm, but it's your meeting.
I don't care.
Would you like to start the discussion?
John, would you care to be nominated as mayor pro tem this year?
Whatever this board would like. I mean, that's fine, or someone else wants it, that's fine too.
It's been a while since you've been mayor pro tem, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was 2 years ago. Beck was this past year. Fred, you were 3 years ago. So I think it makes sense to have a senior member.
I would move to elect Mr. Clausen as mayor pro tem for 2016.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay. Multiple seconds.
I'd also like to comment that in the rare event that the pro tem is not available, should we make another designated individual, like a pro tem or something?
The immediate past pro tem.
Oh, that would work.
I think we might be, Mr. Martin's shaking his head.
My gut feeling is no. Some of this falls to different documentations and statutory signings, and I don't know if you would want to necessarily do that. That could be confusing. That's my off-the-cuff remarks.
I think in the rare occasions that two people, the mayor and in this case myself, would be gone at the same time, really the only thing that might come up, unless there's some type of an emergency, is who's going to chair the meeting, and that can be made up by whoever's here. So
I'll come find you if I have to.
Fair enough. So we have a motion in this second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of voting Mr. Clausen as the mayor pro tem, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We are on to item number 7B, adoption of an ordinance providing an extension of interim subdivision ordinance number 15-15 through February 23rd, 2016. Dorsey, I think you're going to read the staff report, and then I'm going to tap dance.
A little more difficult, and this appears to be more challenging, but I think the preamble is this has been discussed numerous times, and this is like an interim measure, so we don't need to panic over it. So I'll jump into it. So on September 8th, 2015, the City Council adopted Ordinance 1515, an interim ordinance regarding subdivisions for a period of 6 months. This ordinance repealed Municipal Code Chapter 1672 and replaced it with a new Title 26. The impetus of the adoption of the Ordinance 1515 was that the current codes need updating to conform to applicable law and reduce the risk of litigation. The interim zoning ordinance was adopted pursuant to the RCW 3670A.390, which allows an interim zoning ordinance to be effective immediately and to continue in effect for a period of 6 months, as long as the ordinance is adopted by a supermajority of the council and a public hearing is held on the ordinance within 60 days. At the hearing on October 27, 2015, the council voted to keep the interim ordinance in place through January 12, 2016. The city's current interim subdivision ordinance is set to expire on January 12, 2016. That's tonight. If this ordinance expires, the city will not have any subdivision regulations. Per council discussions at the December work-study meeting, staff was to release a revised subdivision ordinance, which could be considered by council on January 12, 2016. However, the attorney was not able to complete review of these revisions by the December 31st deadline set by council. Council had insisted on this deadline to ensure that the public had sufficient time to review the revisions prior to adopting new interim regulations. As such, the existing interim regulations need to be extended through the full 6-month term as allowed under RCW 3678.390 through February 23, 2016. If approved, a public hearing will need to be held within 60 days of adoption of this ordinance to adopt findings of fact in support of its continued maintenance. Alternatively, a new subdivision code could be adopted, which would eliminate this requirement. Staff recommends that council deliberate and vote to approve the ordinance continuing the effective date of ordinance 015-15 through February 23rd, 2016.
Okay, I can further expand on this, is that this needs to be extended, and this is as far as it can be extended. These will become our new regulations unless we change them between now and the 23rd. The goal was, steps we have taken is we took testimony at the last Planning Commission meeting, and the intent was to have that testimony and those potential changes incorporated into a new interim ordinance. That work is mostly done, but it needs the review of our new attorney. So that is the next step. So Nick has most of that work done, and this will be the first task, one of the first tasks of our new attorney. Our other challenge is that our comp plan is by far our biggest priority once we get, going forward till June. So really what we're going to need to do is make this ordinance better, adopt it as our new interim regulations, set it aside, tackle our comp plan, and then come back to this, go through the public process that we should have done last year when we did the emergency action that many of us had heartburn and much of the community did. But I don't believe we can give this the attention it needs. Will jeopardize our comp plan process, and I don't think that's what we want to do. So I apologize that we don't have the new interim regulations done, but we're only 1 week and a half into the year, but this will be one of the first tasks of the attorney. So that's all I've got to offer on this. And from there,
I would move to approve an ordinance continuing the effect of the interim subdivision ordinance, and I believe it's 15-15 through February 23rd, 2016.
Second.
a motion and a second. Further discussion? Or any discussion?
Now, the only thing that I would speak to on this is if we don't do this, we will be without a subdivision ordinance.
Correct.
So that is unacceptable to me.
Other comment? Mr. Clausen.
And I would add, I agree with the mayor that, you know, we need to, this is like putting your finger in the dike for right now, and getting the comp plan finished is really the thing that we need to get done right away. And then this would follow on right after. So
that's the intent.
Yeah.
Ms. Lucarelli.
What we're going to be seeing before the 23rd of February is this plan with the suggestions incorporated by the stakeholders that as we've been calling them all along. And then that will still serve as an interim ordinance until we can get back to it later on. Okay.
That would be what we're going to ask. It's ultimately your decision, the council's decision, to adopt. We could adopt these as the permanent ordinance. That's not going to be my recommendation to do that. I believe we owe the community a proper public process.
I agree. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Ashby.
The other thing that I would just add to that is, once we get the new revisions and we adopt those as the interim ordinance, we have to have the public hearing within 60 days. And then if we have a work plan, we do not have to, we have 1 year. We have 12 months before we have to finalize them, rather than the 6 months. But we have to have the work plan.
And I believe that was what Mr. Bond spoke to. I don't believe it'll take us a year. My goal is to have it done by the end of 2016. But once again, the comp plan takes precedence. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of, where are we here again? The extension of interim subdivision ordinance number 15-15 through February 23rd, 2016. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We are on to item number 7C, adoption of an ordinance providing an extension of interim permit processing ordinance number 14-15 through February 23rd, 2016. Mr. Dorsey.
Yes, this is a similar situation. It's just pushing the ball down the road a bit, and we'll pick it up in February. So on September 8th, 2015, the City Council adopted Ordinance 014-15. Come on, stay on. As an interim ordinance regarding project permit processing for a period of 6 months. This ordinance repealed. This ordinance repealed Municipal Code Chapter 1606 and 1607 and replaced them with a new Title 23. The impetus of the adoption of Ordinance 014-15 was that the current codes need updating to conform to applicable law and reduce the risk of litigation. The interim zoning ordinance was adopted pursuant to RCW 3678-390, which allows an interim zoning ordinance to be effective immediately and to continue in effect for a period of 6 months, as long as the ordinance is adopted by a supermajority of the council and the public hearing is held on the ordinance within 60 days. At the hearing on October 27, 2015, the council voted to keep the interim ordinance in place through January 12, 2016. The city's current interim permit processing ordinance is set to expire January 12th. If this ordinance expires, the city will not have any permit processing regulations. Per council discussions at the December work study, staff was to release a revised permit processing ordinance which could be considered by council on January 12, 2016. However, the attorney was not able to complete review of these sub-revisions by the December 31st deadline set by council. Council had insisted on these deadlines to ensure that the public had sufficient time to review the revisions prior to adopting new interim regulations. As such, the existing interim regulations need to be extended through the full 6-month term as allowed under the RCW 3678.390 through February 23, 2016. If approved, a public hearing will need to be held within 60 days of adoption of this ordinance to adopt findings of fact in support of its continued maintenance. Alternatively, a new permit processing code could be adopted, which would eliminate this requirement. Staff recommends that council deliberate and vote to approve the ordinance continuing the effective date of Ordinance 014-15 through February 23rd, 2016.
And this ordinance has a similar story to the last one, and it would have a parallel path as the last ordinance. Mr. Chang, you raised your hand?
I move to adopt an ordinance continuing the effect of interim permit processing ordinance 1415 through February 23rd, 2016.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll be voting on the adoption of ordinance providing an extension, the interim permit processing ordinance number 14-15 through February 23rd, 2016. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item is number 7D, adoption of a resolution confirming mayoral appointments to boards and commissions. Ms. Reinerson, I believe you got the staff report on this.
Yes. So annually, the city clerk reviews expiring terms or vacancy of members of various boards and commissions. The mayor has appointed the following, or is recommending the appointment of the following persons to the boards and commissions: Kathleen Wilson and Tim Drury to the Planning Commission for a term expiring December 31st, 2019. Ken Cambich for Civil Service Commission for an unexpired term expiring December 31st, 2016. Noelle Larson and Diane Buchanan for the Design Review Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2018. I'm going to try and pronounce this. So, Bajorki for Animal Control Animal Control Appeal Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2018. Robert McGee for Building Boards of Appeals for a term expiring December 31st, 2020. Scott Keel for an unexpired term expiring December 31st, 2019, and Wayne Center as an alternate for a term expiring December 31st, 2020. The Mayor Pratansu recommends adoption of a resolution confirming his appointments as presented.
Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution confirming the mayor's appointments to the boards and commissions as set forth in the resolution presented.
Second.
Discussion on this matter. Seeing none, we'll be voting on the confirmation of the mayor's appointments to boards and commissions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 7E, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with PND Engineers, Inc. for the 2016 DeKalb Pier Phase 2 construction administration and procurement procedure documentation. Mr. Dorsey.
Okay, thank you. Finally, something I can speak to. As part of the 2015-17 capital budget, the City of Port Orchard received an additional $500,000 Community Capital Facilities Grant from the Washington State Department of Commerce for the completion of the DeKalb Pier repair, replacement, and renovation project, being the Phase 2 pier extension and float replacement. This award, combined with the previous $255,000 grant, will allow the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 work to be completed within 2016. As you will recall, in late 2015, the city updated the plans and the environmental permits originally issued in 2013 in order to finalize the Department of Commerce contracts for the $755,000 total grant funding, and the city's Public Works Department is now ready to commence with the Phase 2 construction activity by awarding the project bid support, construction administration, and construction observation, including marine survey and assessment, to the DeKalb Pier project engineer, PND Engineering Incorporated. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 001-16, thereby approving Contract 002-16 with PND Engineers Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $45,200 for the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project bid support, construction administration, and construction observation, and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
It's your pleasure. Mr. Donlin.
I move to adopt resolution number 0016-16, thereby approving contract number 002-16 with PNG Engineers Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $45,200 for the DeKalb Pier Phase 2 project bid support, construction, administration, and construction observation, and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 3980.
Motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Discussion.
I've had the privilege of working with Peradovich, Nottingham, and Drage is what we used to call them in a different life, PN&D. I think people probably got tired of saying that. And they have done good work all around the world, so I expect no less this time around.
Wonderful. Other comments? Seeing none, we'll be voting on a resolution approving a contract with PND Engineers, Inc. for the 2016 DeKalb Pier Phase 2 construction administration, procurement procurement procedure documentation. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. We are on to the adoption of a resolution approving a contract with KPFF Consulting Engineers for the 2016 On-Call Bridge Management Program and Procurement Procedure Documentation. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. As required by the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, and with oversight provided by the Washington State Department of Transportation, Highway and Local Programs, the City of Port Orchard has provided a bridge management program for the Lund Avenue Bridge since 2013 through the hiring of a professional services consultant. In 2016, based upon a recommendation of the state auditor, the city will continue the bridge management program for both the Lund Avenue Bridge and the Bay Street Pedestrian Pathway Bridge using an on-call professional services contract with the procurement procedures consistent with RCW 39.80. KPFF Consulting Engineers, as documented by the attached resolution, was determined to be the most qualified professional services firm. The contract amount for the bridge management program, based upon scope of services provided by KPFF Consulting Engineers, shall not exceed $11,000 annually without written authorization. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 003-16, thereby approving contract 004-16 with KPFF Consulting Engineers not to exceed the amount of $11,000 for the 2016 On-Call Bridge Management Program and documenting professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80. That's it.
Mr. Clausen.
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 003-16, thereby approving contract number 004-16 with KPFF Consulting Engineers in an amount not to exceed $11,000 for the 2016 On-Call Bridge Management Program and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
Sorry, I have a Scrivener's error. If you look at the contract, it's for $32,000. The 11 was specifically line items for KPFF, but there are other items that they oversee. So I didn't go back and edit. So it actually needs to be amended to a contract with KPFF for $32,000. My apologies. There's, like I said, with the bridge management, there are other activities. The $11,000 was only their administrative functions and inspections. There were other items in the scope that's in the back that add up to 32. My apologies. This is a budgeted item, 100% budgeted at 32. So, John, if you could amend
I modified my motion to adjust the not to exceed 11,000 to not to exceed 32,000.
32. My apologies.
All will be accepted.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Chang.
I have to apologize. I lost my little slip that reminds people that I'm a DOT employee, and despite that, I actually do not benefit financially or materially from this resolution. However, if anyone feels that I am biased, I will happily recuse myself from the vote and go to the back room. But I had a well-written statement that was legally vetted, and I can't find it. So that's the best I can do from memory.
Anyone believe Mr. Chang has a conflict of interest and wishes to recuse himself? I see no one, so I'm sorry, you have to stay here with us.
Okay. Worked.
So we have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I'd just like to just make the comment, it is in the contract under Section 4 of that contract, it is clearly spelled out that that amount not to exceed is indeed $32,000.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Any other comments, statements? Okay, seeing none, we will be voting on the contract with KPFF Consulting Engineers for the 2016 On-Call Bridge Management Program and Procurement Procedure Documentation. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. We are on to item 7F, adoption of resolution. Well, we just completed that one. We are on to 7G, approval of December 15th, 2015 council work study minutes.
I move that we approve the work study minutes as presented.
Second.
Second, discussion? Mr. Diener.
I will be abstaining for obvious reasons from this and the next item.
Okay, thank you. So, all those in favor of approving the work study session minutes from December 15th, 2015, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none? Any abstentions? I believe we have one.
You should have two.
We should have two. Mr. Donlin, are you abstaining also?
I must abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay, fair enough. So we have two abstentions. On to item 7H, approval of the December 22nd, 2015 council meeting minutes.
I
Jang.
move approval of the December 22nd, 2015 council meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the December 22nd, 2015 council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? I believe we'll have two abstentions again. Yes.
Yep. One more time.
All right. We are on to 7I, discussion of council committee assignments and council retreat date. Reinerson, is that you?
Staff was asked to add this item to the council's agenda for you guys to consider having a discussion on committees.
Ms. Ashby, I believe you
Yes,
brought this forward.
Yes, I did. I asked to have that on this evening's agenda because I wanted to just bring a couple ideas forward to council so that you'd have an opportunity to think about them before our work study next week. But traditionally at the January work study session, assignments to council committees for the next 2 years will be made. We do this every other January. You will find in your packet a list of our current our current committees, and they are finance, utilities, public properties, economic development, tourism. For the 2 years that I've been on the council, I have struggled a little bit with some of the work done by the committees. With that said, what I do, and so I have been playing in my own mind how we could perhaps restructure committees or have different committees. And what I've come up with, it doesn't really change our committees at all. But what I think I've struggled with is I know that there are two very important matters before us this next year: transportation funding and the comprehensive plan update, which neither of those items have a defined home within one of our standing committees. So I would invite the council to think about and have a discussion at our work study that we would charge the finance committee with studying the transportation funding issue so that that matter has a home in a committee for deliberations. I would also invite the council to consider changing the name of our Public Properties Committee to the Land Use Committee and task that committee with the comprehensive plan update. I don't see that the work of the Land Use Committee, or the work of the Land Use Committee, would mirror what has been traditionally done in public properties, but would expand to include land use issues as brought forward through KRCC and PSRC. Again, I wanted to bring these forward tonight so that people could think about them before our work study next week. And basically, the committees would say the same, but we would task finance with deliberating on our transportation funding, and we would assign what I would call our land use committee with the comprehensive plan, so that both of those major issues have a home for deliberation.
Okay, so one thing I need to raise, and I have already, is that I won't be at that meeting next week, and I feel very passionate about being able to participate in this discussion. So I am not sure how to solve that. I know there are other issues on the agenda for next week that are going to be pretty all-consuming. And I'm not sure how much time was going to be spent on this, but I'm asking for the opportunity to be able to speak on this somehow.
We could have a discussion this evening.
Are we comfortable staying another half an hour or so this evening?
Yeah, whatever it would take.
It's your
We
meeting.
have,
You can-
we have 3 new council members who haven't really served on committees, so they're kind of unfamiliar with what I'm talking about. But we have 4 experienced council members that could perhaps provide some dialogue or some interaction.
Beck, I'd like a little extra time for everyone to process this. I think it's too soon tonight. It's been already kind of a long meeting. A lot of new information needs to come forth, and I'd like to be able to sit down and talk about it. What about, I will be back for the next council meeting. Could we meet prior to that meeting, say an hour, to really talk about committees and what that would entail? Would you be open for that? That would be on January 25th, starting perhaps at 6 or 6 o'clock. Would you be open for that?
Some commute, just be sensitive to that.
Could it
Shane?
happen during the meeting? Is the agenda packed for the 26th, or?
I haven't had a chance to look at it. I know there's some items. I mean, I can update. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me right now.
I mean, I could adjust my schedule, but I'm just wondering if it could be later.
Well, if there isn't too much in that meeting, that would make sense.
I'm with the will of the council. I'm flexible either way.
I think I would prefer to not have it as part of the meeting. I think it's just a little more, if we,
More discussion.
yeah, sit around the table, it's a little easier to chat than it is to look all the way down to the other end of the table.
For the desire, then, is 30 minutes sufficient versus an hour?
I'm sorry to interrupt. The deputy clerk had a chance to look at the agenda for the 26th, and there is 4 business items slated at this time for that agenda. And it changes daily, but that's what we have at this point.
I mean, I'm available
So we have a total of
if that
6.
works for others. I don't know. You guys that are
If we
commuting.
choose to do it before the meeting, I think we need an hour. I don't think 30 minutes is
No,
nearly
I
long enough.
think we should do an hour at least.
I'm available as well.
So
Fred commutes.
I can adjust to, I guess, be here an hour earlier.
Okay.
So the desire is then to have a more informal meeting, potentially in the conference
6
room?
o'clock study
At 6
session.
o'clock?
Mhm.
Okay, in the council conference room? Okay,
That'd be great.
okay.
And Your Honor, I just would like to give some traction to what Councilmember Ashby has spoken to. When I first saw the Committee of Public Property, I wasn't sure what that meant. Was it a disposal committee for public property that council was trying to rid itself of, or what? So I like the idea of a name that better reflects the mission of that committee. And then I also wondered where transportation funding efforts was fitting into these subcommittees at some point. So I think it is a worthwhile idea to consider that. Those are my preliminary thoughts.
Mr. Clausen.
And, I'd kind of like to just add on that too, and maybe as Beck mentioned, there's 4 of us that have been around and 3 of us that haven't. So maybe we could spend just a few minutes of kind of talking about what these committees generally do and how they work, just so everybody has a pretty good understanding, at least historically. If we want to change that, now is the time to change it, but at least we can kind of get an idea.
Our next step in the meeting is the committee reports, and I doubt that we have any. So maybe each committee chair, that's our committee report, is what the committee is.
I would rather wait till we have time to sit
That
down
evening?
and ask
Okay,
questions.
and not
do
this
it that
evening,
way.
okay. Other discussion on this matter? So, Clerk Reinerson, it sounds like we need to notice a public meeting that evening, an hour earlier, and at 6 o'clock in the council conference room. And, Clausen?
And I think we've also, in the past, we have kind of a description of what the committees historically have been responsible for, if we could dig that up.
Yeah, I
Probably
believe
2 years
it's in a
ago
form
we
of a
did it.
resolution, so I'll make sure that I have that
Well, it just kind of gives a description of what those committees are. We've done it before, and it might be if we could get that out to the council beforehand, people
Oh,
have an
yeah.
opportunity to kind of digest it before we get to the meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for helping with that. I really appreciate it.
And so we're on to item 8, which is council committee reports. I don't,
We had one.
we do, oh, that's Mr. Kachari, you have one. So I'm just, and first is going down this list. Just speak up if you have something. So Mr. Kachari, we'll start with you.
Review, we did have our Public Property Committee meeting this past Monday, and a couple highlights from that is we did have some public testimony regarding residential parking permit system, Port Orchard Municipal Code 10.14. A couple of the highlights from that, maybe some unintended consequences had to deal with guest passes. I think the people there at the meeting understood some of those unintended consequences of people trying to gather community meetings at their home, and the process of which it takes to get 10, 15, 20 people down here to get these passes, the expense it incurs, perhaps burden on staff. Also about registering vehicles that are actually registered at that address. It could happen where someone has a vehicle at their house that perhaps is owned by someone else in their family, and so just to maybe bring some clarity there. So we have asked staff to draft a new ordinance by month end and to address all the concerns that were brought forward, and we'll be acting on that very soon. Second item that I think was noteworthy is the monthly parking pass at the city lots, Port Orchard Municipal Code 10.12. It actually was a really good time to have this discussion. Chief Marti was with us that day. He was already working right now to replace the meters that are down there. They're aging. Some of the type of stickers that they have are not lasting. The monthly pass in and of itself could be a little bit cumbersome. So he is working with parking enforcement. Will be coming to our next public properties meeting in February to give us some recommendations on how to address monthly parking on a move forward basis. Also, some of you are familiar with, for years, we have the hanging banner across Bay Street. That's always been something that's gone through South Kitsap Fire and Rescue, and just with some of the changes internally there, they've asked to be relieved of that duty. Along with that, we've had local Rotarians that have actually physically hung that banner, so we don't have that right now. And so we are going to bring this to our January work study session of the council to identify both short-term and long-term replacements for that. I know that's been an important part of our community, a lot of different community groups, so we've heard testimony from them, and we want to try to figure out not only a short-term but a long-term solution for that banner. And then also discuss general parks discussion, and we discussed the Conceptual Parks Commission. That's something we've talked about, but the committee first wants to have draft parks element to review, and staff will be providing the draft at our February planning meeting. So before we're going to discuss the Conceptual Parks Commission, we wanted to be able to take a look at the draft parks element that'll eventually be part of our comp plan. And that's it.
That's your report. Anyone else? Outside agency or other committees that met? Mr. Chang, you raised your hand.
I went to an orientation for the Kitsap Community Resources with the alternate Chris Stansberry. It was with the Executive Director Larry Iyer and President Greg Wheeler. We found out a little more about the organization, and we hope to, I'm speaking for the alternate, participate in some of the committees. I'm actually interested in getting more people to understand what exactly Kitsap Community Resources does. They appear to be an umbrella agency and a nonprofit for the underserved in the area. And we're hoping that we raise their awareness of issues in South Kitsap.
And I'd like to thank Mr. Chang. They approached me about serving on the board, and I felt that my first year in office that I needed to be more focused on activities in City Hall. But I felt it was very important that we had representation on that board, and they provide important services to our community. So I want to thank Mr. Chang for volunteering to do that on behalf of the city. Councilmember Ashby, do you have a report?
We had the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council meeting on January 5th. At that meeting, we reviewed the draft call for projects and the draft evaluation criteria for this year's countywide federal transportation funding cycle. We talked about, again, the draft call for action and the criteria that will be presented for adoption at the February 1st meeting. Also at that meeting is a housekeeping item. a land use technical advisory committee was established, and basically we renamed the planning directors forum to land use technical advisory committee so that it mirrors more the transportation technical advisory committee. And that was what we did. And later on this week, we have the PSRC Transportation Policy Board meeting and the KRCC Transportation Policy Board meeting.
Other reports? Seeing it, I apologize for the length of this mayor's report, and I will be as brief as I can, but there was a lot going on in this last week. So my first week in office, so I've been busy getting to know the staff and participating in as many staff meetings as I can. Been met with Mr. Bond and Mr. Dorsey, both trying to put together work plans for the coming year and refining those. I hope to be able to present those soon to the council at one of our work studies. I've also had discussion with the clerk's office, and I think we can do a little better job, and this speaks to many of the things that Mr. Chang talks about at times. I'd like, and it'll cost us a little bit of money, but when we do our public notices, I'd like to see a little more content in those and try to, not everybody reads those, but that's an opportunity to provide information versus just the bare necessities, in particular when we were talking about the sewer and water rates and issues of that nature is what I'm envisioning there. Sit on a number of policy boards. Transit board was last week. Big issue coming up there is on the 19th. We have passenger only work study planned. I did reach out to transit staff too to get information about park and ride lots and just thinking about the long-term parking that's happening on our waterfront. Hopefully we can provide some information, better alternatives to folks that are parking on our waterfront and park and ride lots and transit options that are available. Also attended the KRCC meeting, so I won't speak too much about that. Councilmember Ashby already did, but in particular the funding cycle application, and that for us that's Tremont is coming up at the end of February. I attended the DEM, Department of Emergency Management. I'm on that board. Found out that our comprehensive emergency management plan should have already been approved. That'll be one of the first things that our new attorney reviews, and we'll get that done as soon as possible. I'm assured DEM of that. And if you're wondering what that is it's a document that in the event that we had a natural disaster, it allows us to access federal funds. And we want to be able to do that, I would believe. Kitsap Health Board, kind of alarming there. They're running at almost about a $500,000 deficit, and which isn't at all sustainable, in my opinion. So one of the steps they're going to be taking is they haven't looked at their food handling permits since 2009. They'll be holding a public meeting regarding their food handling permits at the Norm Dix Center January 21st. And what that is the permit for a restaurant with the health department or your food handler's permit. And the proposing across the board increases to the a permit that would be to a restaurant to $53 across the board, and your food handlers a permit of increase of $14. These fee increases would generate about $100,000 annually, which is about a good portion or a good start towards their operating deficit. Housing Kitsap, for those of us that have been on the council a number of years, we had some pretty alarming executive sessions here 4 or 5 years ago when the agency had some severe financial difficulties. That debt is down to about $16 million now, which still sounds like a lot of money, but it was north of $40 million at one point. So in perspective, things are much better. The agency is ahead of plan on their long-term debt to the county, and staff has presented a strategic plan that allows the agency to step back into the development market. In particular, they're doing some analysis on a project on Bainbridge Island for housing. If this strategy is successful, it would accelerate debt repayment through development fees. More information and provide more low-income housing units in Kitsap County. While it was my first meeting, I sensed that the board was cautiously optimistic, but it was agreed that more analysis was needed than numbers before we proceeded. My next, just a question here on the lobbyist. Are you guys comfortable with the format? I know, Scott, you have it. I've been forwarding the emails from Brianna. We had 3 bills in particular. I don't know if you want to go into those in detail. Does anybody disagree with the position we were taking on any of those? Okay, so if you read your email, I just wanted concurrence. Are you guys comfortable?
Can you just mention
For the public.
For the public? Okay, so there was 3 bills. First was House Bill 2296, which expanded existing funding, which would expand existing funding from 20 years to 40 years for the existing public facilities district. And our lobbyist felt, and I agreed with her, that we could get behind this if new projects were allowed. We don't have a project. So what's happening here is these projects are 15, 18 years old, and you have to have a project to be able to get this additional funding. And our lobbyist, which I agree with her, well, sure, we'll support this in continuing this funding for another 20 years, but let's open it up to other folks to potentially have a project. Well, we don't have anything in the hopper. I heard somebody talking about the arts earlier this evening or something of that nature. So I felt that we should get behind this, provided they expand new projects being considered. The next one was House Bill 2097, which would allow municipal courts to impose fees that are currently allowed only to superior courts. And I ran this by Deb Hunt, our court administrator, and she believes we should support that bill. It's not a silver bullet, but what it would allow us to do is recover jury costs. And we only have 1 or 2 jury trials a year, but currently we can't recover those costs, and we could with this bill. The last is a Senate Bill 6169, sponsored by Senator Jan Angel, and it aims to ensure that jurisdictions are able to retain easements on foreclosed property. And I certainly believe that we would want to, property went through foreclosure, that we'd still want our utility easement after the foreclosure. So those are the 3. Couple other quick items. It came to my attention that Highway 166 here will be closed for a couple of weeks this summer, and I'm going to share that this Thursday morning with the Portage Business Association, and it's to replace a culvert at Anderson Creek and Gorst, and there are going to be some lane shifts, and so our highway here will be closed for a couple weeks. It's a lengthy project, but the road closure will be on a couple weeks as they shift the lanes. So other issue that shouldn't have caught us by surprise, but it seems to have, is that the state is merging the medical marijuana with the recreational marijuana. Our ordinance only addresses the recreational side. We're going to need to get our attorney working on that quickly, and if we're going to, we're going to need to change something within our ordinance, because we never contemplated the medical being merged with the recreational. PSE, if you have, is doing a lot of work on Sydney between Lund and downtown. Over the next 3 months, they'll be replacing 15 power poles, and all of the wire is going to be replaced with tree wire, so there'll be intermittent power outages between Lund and downtown for the next 3 months. So nothing major is considered, but don't be surprised when you come home and the clock's flashing on your stove.
Rob, do we know if they could underground them for us?
They certainly could. It's called Schedule 74, and we explored that downtown, and it was about $3 million to do downtown. We tackled you know,
Yeah,
a chunk of it.
Yeah, I had responded to your email. Did Janine send it?
I didn't see it if it was my secret account.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're, please
So-
convey it.
That's a sticky wicket because if you have a Schedule 74, the city had two, now we have one. We have a Schedule 74 on the Tremont corridor. It's a very lengthy process to establish a Schedule 74. It's a shared revenue cost program that requires undergrounding. It's a 60-40 split, design, construction. And if there's not an area, so all new development has undergrounding. But existing development, it becomes a labor union issue with Puget Sound, the, what are they called, the linemen or the people that go on the poles, their union. They don't want to see undergrounding. They make most of their money through insurance, storms, and things. So it's a really contentious issue. And so I would say we shouldn't be asking PSC to underground Sydney because it's a sticky wicket.
Well, this particular line is a transmission main, which a residential line is, it's much more expensive for transmission mains. One of the things they are doing, though, is this tree wire, which doesn't short the way that traditional wire does, and it should make power interruptions much, more infrequent.
And thank you for the explanation, because I think some people's assumption was that, well, if we ask them, won't they just pay for it themselves? And we now know that would not happen.
Yeah, they have a franchise agreement that, in a budget that doesn't include undergrounding.
And my last item is, as I had the pleasure today of presenting an award to Officer Dave Walker for the Employee of the Quarter. He had a number of wonderful letters from people in the community on how he'd helped with, someone with a flat tire to, assisting someone that was mentally ill. And it was a wonderful honor for me to present him with that award today. So that's all I have. Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, you and I and Councilmember Ashby had a meeting in December with Charlie Howard at Puget Sound Regional Council and another, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to
I've shared
share
some
that
with Mr.
with
Dorsey.
Mark. Okay.
Would you
Basically,
care to
for the
share?
council's benefit, the three of us met with folks from Puget Sound Regional Council to see what opportunities there may be to either strengthen the competitiveness of our Tremont project or other things that we might be able to do with that particular need in regards to more of a regional competition. So they shared some things to explore, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to share it with Mr. Dorsey. So I guess at this point there's more to come. There's no guarantees, but
we do need to follow up on that. And it would enable us. Historically, we've only been able to participate at KRCC. There's some regional funds too, and they give us some ideas that potentially we could participate in that pool of dollars. Doesn't mean we're going to get them, but how we could, because we're not a regional center. Bremerton is, but we do have workers traveling through that corridor and from our community headed to a regional center. And so we should be considering or find a way to apply for those and try to compete for those dollars. Every little bit will help. Yes, sir.
I've had the luxury, I guess you can call it that, of working for the county on its marijuana issues, and there are some changes coming. Collective gardens will be phased out by law beginning July 1, and that is they're being phased out largely because they're kind of a loophole in the recreational system. But what that presents for perhaps the city and certainly for the county is code compliance issues, and those would be pretty heavy. Also, a new legislation, well, it's not new anymore, but legislation allows for jurisdictions to determine if they want to reduce the 1,000-foot buffer that's currently in place. If the city hasn't had those requests, I'm sure they'll be getting those. And the other major issue is associated with co-ops. The legislation that we're looking at the county allows co-ops, but if you can see a grow, or if you can smell it grow, then that co-op's got to stop. And it allows one co-op per piece of property. So all those are issues. What if you have an apartment complex on a piece of property? The smell of marijuana is very prevalent. So those are also code compliant issues that we're trying to get our heads around, and I think the city needs to be aware of as well.
Fortunately, we only allow the retail aspect of it on the recreational side, so we probably won't have any code compliance issues.
These are personal grows that people are allowed to do.
Personal grows.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
interesting. So
More on
we've
that.
got some work to do on
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
issue. I know we
Absolutely.
do. It came to my attention this last week. So with that, department heads. Do we have any reports from our department heads, Mr. Dorsey?
I don't have a report, but I need some clarification. So we know we have the 6 o'clock meeting on the 26th to talk about committee assignments, but we do have a SAC meeting on the 20th. Shall I assume that the 2015 SAC committee members are going to be attending that meeting so that they can sign the minutes once those minutes get approved? Because there was a July and an October meeting that I still have the minutes for. Is that kosher? Or I guess if Rob would go just as a mayor, and we'd at least have 2 current committee members so that you'd have a forum.
I'll be gone.
Cindy's out of town. Is that here at City Hall?
It's at City Hall.
6:30?
But Cindy can't sign the minutes until they're approved.
If we approve them that night,
Then you guys can sign, then I'll just hold on to them until Cindy
hold on
can
to it
sign.
until Cindy comes back.
But my point is, if I could get as many historic SAC members there, that week, is then you'll be making assignments in the future. But yeah, okay, thank you.
So I can attend and sign in my prior capacity at that meeting, and it's 6:30 here at City Hall?
6:30 here at City Hall.
What's the date of that?
The
20th.
Mr. Chang, didn't you attend the last meeting? Would you mind attending?
No, I didn't.
I would not mind.
Okay. Because you were there, I believe, at the last meeting. So.
I think that was the October meeting, so you'd have to sign the minutes anyway.
Okay, so at 6:30 here at City Hall.
On the 20th. Yeah,
On the 20th.
Wednesday.
Okay. Any other reports, Mr. Dorsey? No? Nope. Mr. Martin, you have a report?
Yes, Finance has been very busy welcoming the new mayor, and that has pretty much taken our week. It's been a fun time, and the new mayor sat down with our full staff, which we have the first Thursday of each month. We have a full meeting, and Rob sat in on that, and we went around the room and had a good discussion. So welcome, and we're glad that you're here. On another note, I did want to give you a quick update that the Centel consulting company that came in and looked at our computer system, I've had has their draft report out. I'm very pleased with their work. We've had 2 conference call interviews with them, with staff, to go over their recommendations. I've started to write a layperson's report that you'll have, and then you'll have the actual report of the firm itself, and then the printouts. And I think we're going to get a good document. They've given some real practical, quick solutions, and they've given us the long-term view as well. So I'm really pleased with this. So over the next 90 days or so, I hope to get this wrapped up. It's in draft form now. They are finishing it up, and I think we're going to have a good product and a direction that you'll be pleased with. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Reinerson, do you have a report for us?
Yes. So the clerk's office has also been busy welcoming the new mayor and a few council members. So there's a couple things that I'm not sure if the senior council members, I don't know if that's the correct term, has noticed as part of the agenda that for the ordinances, I went back to look to see if it's a statutorily requirement to have a council person sponsor an ordinance. I did not see that. I looked at other jurisdictions. They don't typically have their council members sign an ordinance as well. And in speaking with the mayor, he's asked that the council support to no longer seek the signatures of the council members on an ordinance unless the council so desires. And then another, yep.
I would rather wait with that discussion until we have our own attorney on board, no offense, but
fair enough.
I think I would rather hear it from our attorney.
Okay.
And then the second change that we are incorporating at the result of our 2014 audit is to reincorporate a resolution documenting the processes that we took to award a contract. So a few years ago, I believe in 2011 and prior, typically we had resolutions brought forth to the council for adoption when we enter into a contract, and we have learned since then when we eliminated those that there was a reason why we had those, and so we will divert back to that process to satisfy the auditor's comments, which we did tonight, and I do believe we did at the December 22nd's council meeting as well, but we just want to make sure on a contract, but we want to make sure that the council was aware that the reason why we are making that change.
Yeah, and you'll remember for when we had our exit conference, we had that one item where they said they wanted us to make it stronger, and that's what this is about.
It just puts the different processes and the different documents of how we awarded that contractor into one document that outlines the whole process instead of the auditor coming to different departments and different files looking to see that we actually did what we were supposed to. So
yeah, I think to add on to that, so we are doing that resolutions per contract, but I believe we're also working on a resolution that council will adopt that adopts a process that's a documented, approved process, a policy.
A policy,
yeah.
And then Mayor Pro Tem Clausen, I have a finance document that I have been hounded and was told that I must have you complete this form so we can, as time is of the essence, to get claim warrants signed and processed. So if you could see me after the council meeting, I would appreciate if you can get this form filled out for me tonight. Yes. And we need to add the Mayor Pro Tem and the mayor onto the account. And then lastly, I'm not sure that it would affect the council, but AWC is our insurer. We belong to the risk pool. The risk pool director has sought employment elsewhere, so we do have a new director in the risk management. They promoted Roger Neal, who was our loss prevention coordinator, so he is now the director. I don't see that there's going to be any issues. I know him and the previous director worked together quite a bit, and so we're glad to have him as our director. So other than that, that's all I have.
We're at that time in the evening where we're to citizen comments. Does anybody in the public wish to speak this evening? Mr. Waters.
Good evening, Pat Waters. I'm a 502 retail marijuana salesman here, soon to be in the city. And speaking about, there was on the 8th, we were given a copy of the emergency rules that are going to be in effect that, and I'll just read it to you and talk a little bit about how it might affect the city and also access points for medical patients. It says, in a separate action, the board also adopted emergency rules following staff's recommendation to expand the number of retail marijuana outlets to accommodate the alignment of the two markets. At its December 16th, 2015 meeting, the board heard a process recommendation from staff that would increase the number of retail marijuana stores from the current cap of 334 to the new cap of 556. The recommendation followed an analysis of an entire marijuana marketplace by state's contracted research organization, Botech Analysis Corporation. You can read more regarding the recommendations from the December 16th media release. Here's the nuts and bolts of the report. Botech Analysis Corporation provided its final report, estimating the size of medical cannabis market in Washington state. On December 15th, 2015, in its report, BOTEC provided a range of value of the overall marijuana market in Washington State. Its best estimate of the overall market value is a median figure of $1.3 billion annually. Its best estimate on the breakdown is $480 million medical, 37% of the market, $460 million state-licensed recreational stores, 35% of the market, and $390 million illicit, 28% of the market. Well, currently with the state's ordinance, how that affects us is that the state, or the city, won't be selling any medical. We won't be selling any medical. The state will, or the city won't be getting any revenue. I understand we just bought a new police car with the revenue, and maybe we can buy two if we adopt the medical sales. The other thing is medical, I believe, is the most important. It's what got me into the business was the medical part. My wife was a cancer patient. Prior to that time, I was completely against marijuana. I voted against the bill and everything. But I believe that medical marijuana quite possibly saved my wife's life. So I'm a proponent, and I believe that we need to have access in the city. So I've got these to pass out. I think this is a process that the city needs to take up and have public comment and figure out how you want to approach this. We've already got 4 stores in the city. They've allocated 10 more stores to the city, which would put 20, not to the city, to the county, but there's 4 in the city, 10 more being allocated countywide, and that's going to be a lot of stores here. I think there should be a deliberation on how many stores the city plans to have here. In the original original allocation of stores, the city wasn't allocated a store. Bremerton was allocated 3, Paulsbo 1, I think Kingston 1, and there may have been one other one, maybe. I'm not sure exactly, but I think there were 7 at large and 3 dedicated. The reason Port Orchard wasn't allocated any was because it was too small. We've got 4 already. So I think there should be some deliberation on how many we have. So thank you for your input. And I've got some handouts if anybody would like that.
Get them to the clerk. We'll get them into the mailboxes. And you're absolutely correct. And that's why we were discussing that earlier, that this is a process that we need to take on and get out in front of.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to make a comment this evening? Seeing none? Anything for the good of the order? Oops, I'm sorry. Ms. Stewart, come on up.
I'm Bobby Stewart. I own the old Central Antique Mall, and I just wanted to thank the council for opening this bond issue to the public. I usually attend all the council meetings, and I was so impressed that it was so well attended and warmed my heart. And also, one little issue, I probably will never give up on trying to put the telephone poles out of the street and the lines under, even with the cost, because if you look down our street, that is a real eyesore. We had a telephone pole between the mall and the library, and you were gracious enough to take that down, and it made a big difference in the back. So I'm just put this in the record. If I win the lotto tomorrow night, I will be paying for that.
Thank you, Bobby. Anyone else wishing to make a comment this evening? Seeing none, anything for the good of the order? I think our meeting is adjourned.